Welcome everybody to the Performance Review and Scrutiny Committee. We'll start with apologies for absence. We've had apologies from Councillor Ali and Councillor Kumar. I think everybody else is here. Emergency evacuation procedures. Steve, could you?
Yeah, I think for a lot of members it will possibly be the way you came in almost. So it's out of this room, we go down the stairs, but we'll head straight out the front of the Ops building to the car park.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just inquire, for those of us with mobility issues, will Councillor Davis give me a fireman's lift?
Well, if he moves quite quickly, Councillor Davis, right, though, so I think he'll be long gone, but Danny behind you will assist.
It's more professional than me, Richard, if you want to get out of the line. I think to be fair, I think we have enough professionals within the building.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I think we probably do, yeah. Okay, declarations of interest. Has anybody got any they need to declare? No. Public access, we've received none.
No, that's
no.
right.
So come on to Chair's business. So I need to confirm that this committee meeting is taking place as a face-to-face meeting, and we're also recording the meeting for the public to view on the Fire Authority's YouTube channel. So if I could ask members to introduce themselves first. We go this way around. So I'll start. I'm Robert Payne. I'm Councillor for Weston-super-Mare Central, and I'm the chair of this committee. So we go around.
Richard Eddy, I'm Councillor for Bishopsworth and Bristol.
Good morning, I'm Adam Monk. I represent South Gloss in Filton in South Gloss.
Councillor Don Davis from Pill Ward in North Somerset Council.
Councillor Ben Nutlin, Councillor Ben Nutlin, Councillor for Yate North, South Gloucestershire Council.
Thank you. And if we just ask officers to introduce themselves. Would you like to start, Steve?
Yeah, good morning, Steve Imrie, one of the Assistant Chiefs for the service.
Thank you.
Good morning, Emma Berwind, Democratic Services.
And good morning, I'm Simon Flood, I'm Performance Manager for Avon Fire and Rescue.
Good morning, Amanda Brown, Avon Fire Authority Clerk.
And I'll ask the officers who are presenting reports to introduce themselves as they come forward. So could I remind everybody to use their microphones when speaking and turn them off when you've finished. So we'll take voting, if required, by a show of hands, votes against, abstentions and votes for. So if we move on to the minutes of the previous meeting of the 7th of October, we need to amend the heading of the minutes. The title of the committee should be Performance Review and Scrutiny Committee. But other than that, is there anybody else got any observations about the minutes?
I move them as correct record, Chair.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Nutland. Everybody in favour of that? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the performance report. And Simon Flood to present. Simon.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning again, colleagues and councillors. So the performance report in front of you is looking at the corporate performance indicators that we measure as a fire service for the first 8 months of the current financial year. So it's from April to November of 2022. There are 2 appendices, as usual, attached to the paper. The first one is the corporate scorecard, which is all of the measures that we currently measure on a corporate level. And the second one is a subset of that same information, just presented in a slightly more graphic way, more user-friendly way, in the format of the target tracker. And we produce these at service level and also at unitary and at station level, and they get sent to members in their role as champions for the individual stations. So just briefly looking at some of the indicators, and we group the indicators against our 7 key objectives. So the prevention indicators, 4 of those are about fires. We are on target for 3 of them, but just off target for deliberate secondary fires. And if I can refer you to the target tracker and the graph in the bottom left-hand corner, which is regarding deliberate secondary fires, you can see there that the main reason we're off target is due to the high spike of incidents that happened in August of this year when we had the exceptional hot weather. And these fires are very much linked to changes in climate. When we have a lot of hot weather and a lot of people outside and a lot of incendiary material available, then we tend to have a lot of fires. Conversely, when it snows, we tend to have very few types of fires this way.
Through you, Chairman, sorry to interrupt, Simon. Could I ask, I know in the urban areas we've had some arson attacks. Could that be a reason why it's higher?
Yes, these are all ones that we think are deliberate rather than accidental. And our standard of proof for that is we merely suspect it is deliberate. So sometimes the judgment on that can be slightly grey, but we're looking for factors that we're saying, okay, it is more likely that this was done deliberately, and by deliberate we mean with some sort of malicious intent rather than being an accident. But there can be circumstances where, as Steve would be aware, if you look at something you think, okay, so for example, disposable barbecue put into a bin whilst it was still warm. Wasn't done accidentally, or did someone actually intend to cause mischief or a fire by doing that? And it's difficult in those circumstances to tell. But for those, we would usually say, unless we've got some reason to merely suspect it's deliberate, we would class it as accidental. Okay. And since then, the numbers have come back to being more as we would expect them to be, but it is unlikely, I think, that we're going to reach target because of that spike. The second thing I wanted to make reference to with regard to prevention is in paragraph 5.4, which is about completing home fire safety visits. I do have an update from our area manager in charge of prevention and protection, and what they inform is that the referrals that we're getting from partner agencies, which is where we get the majority of addresses that we're going to go to complete the home fire safety visits, has not yet got back to pre-pandemic levels, but we're doing our best to engage with them to try and get more referrals to allow us to do more of these visits. And we are making some additional contacts through things like engagement with SARI, and we're also doing more work after some of the significant fires we've had this year to engage with the local population with using that, if you like, as our in way of getting people to engage with us to undertake home fire safety visits. So we are just off target with that. We're looking to increase the numbers, and we're hopeful that we may get nearer to target by the end of the year. Okay, thank you. With regard to protection, you'll see as well on the scorecard that we are just off target for processing building regulations and licensing applications. And again, the area manager in charge of protection and prevention has informed that we have had some churn of staff, but we have recruited further staff, and these are being trained up to provide the resilience. But the training programme to become effective does take quite a long time, so it is a little bit of a catch-up with that. So we are off target, but we have processes in place to try and mitigate that to get us back to where we want to be. Okay. The response indicators remain on target, and we're achieving those, and we're also answering the 999 calls within the target that we set ourselves. With regard to resilience, which is the main one we talk about there, is about the shifts and days that we've lost to sickness amongst our staff. You can see that we are still off target, and we still have a issue where the majority of the sickness that we're losing is due to long-term sickness. There are still issues with regard to including COVID-19 related absences in the figures, which, if members remember, the last 2 financial years we were excluding them and reporting them separately. For this year we decided nationally through Fire Chiefs Council to include them in the data, and they are having an impact upon the numbers that we're reporting. And the numbers have increased through this winter period because we keep our eye on what's going on. If we were to take the COVID-19 figures out of there, then we would be nearer to our target figure than we are currently. The other thing I wanted to make reference to, on paragraph 510, we do benchmark where we can against information, against other services to check our performance. And if you remember, when we first started trying to improve our sickness figures, one of the things we were looking to do was improve our position relative to other fire and rescue services with regard to shifts lost due to sickness. And I'm pleased to report in the graph there that we are gradually improving on that. So where our own sickness has increased, that looks to be the case nationally across fire and rescue services that are all having similar issues with ourselves with regard to COVID, but our relative position in the benchmarking is improving. So I think we're going in the right way, but just not as quickly as we'd like to be doing so. Looking at the indicators with regard to improving our service, there are two there. The health and safety indicator about reducing lost days or shifts as a result of health and safety incidents is on target, but we're just off target with reducing our carbon emissions. I put some text in there about the major reason for that, and the major reason is about the increased appliance fuel usage due to the high number of incidents that we've been to this year. What we are looking to do, because at the moment we have a target for this, which is a linear target to reduce by 10% each year, with an idea that by the 10th year we will be carbon neutral. So we've been talking to our fleet manager and our environmental manager, because the thought process is if we're not looking to change the way our vehicles are fuelled in the next year, which is potentially unlikely, then will we have a 10% reduction in the data? Because we want to make sure that our targets are achievable and realistic. So it's beginning to look as though setting the target in that linear way may be not either achievable or realistic, but we'll inform you as we progress on that. And the last thing I wanted to make reference to is a good news story, which is great. So in 513, members remember that we have struggled over recent years to get our managers to complete performance development reviews, appraisals, if you like, for our staff. And what we ask them to do is to make sure that an appraisal happens at least once every year. So nobody's appraisal is more than 365 days old. We struggle with trying to get the cultural change to make that happen, but I'm pleased to report through some of the hard work and dedication of the management team and the managers, we're now achieving that, and we've got 96% are in date. So we need to keep working on it. We need to keep making sure that we don't lose our focus on there, but very pleased to report that we're finally in target with those, and we'll be looking to make sure that we remain in target. So that was all I wanted to say. If I can open up if there are any questions.
Questions? Ben, yes.
Thank you, Simon. Great report as always. I've just got two questions, if that's okay. So do you want me to do one after another, or do you want me to take them? Okay. So you've mentioned home fire safety visits, the engagement has gone down. Is there any general reason behind that?
No, the reason, as I say, that the area manager in charge has said to us is we still haven't recovered the volume of referrals we're getting from our partner agencies. So we need to work upon that, because we can't keep saying because of COVID we need to be basically getting the same volume that we were getting before. So it's something we're actively pursuing to make sure that the volume of referrals we're getting through remains consistent and gets back to the numbers that it was prior to the pandemic.
Yeah, if I may, Chair, just to follow up on that question. So you've done the initial work into that. Have any general sort of things come up in terms of why we aren't getting the same level of referrals before COVID? Or is it just a case that people are just starting to get back into, our partner agencies are just starting to refer us back into the system?
I think it is more the latter, is the information that I have, but we can check and just get back to you about that.
Okay. Second question, our sickness, once you remove COVID, isn't too far off from the average. Have we, sort of in vein to the last question, have we looked into some of the reasons behind these sickness-related issues? Is it just the general bug that's going around, or are there any additional issues which might raise concern?
Yes, we do analyse that, and we produce information looking at both the number of shifts lost, but also the occurrences. And there are some issues with regard to it, so we're having more issues with regard to mental health and things like that. So it's something that certainly the HR team and the HR managers are aware of that information, and it's available to us. And we have our service leadership team next week, and it's on the agenda there to just check through to make sure that we're mitigating as we should be, and then to discuss any further mitigations we want to make, which obviously then will feed back to the committee.
That's great. Thank you.
So, Simon, as Ben said, a very effective report, well done. All the rationales you gave were actually underperformance, and the fact we're taking the appropriate level, I'm reassured by. Just one question, not to do with our performance. On your comparative sickness benchmarking table, I assume the 10% leading it is London, is it?
It's difficult with that because we share the information on the basis that we won't then publish the information externally. Hence, on the graph at the bottom, I've
you've been not have to
the
talk
names.
to you afterwards.
Yes,
Yeah.
Chinese burn would probably affect it. But the whole point of it is that brigade may not yet have reported their sickness to their fire authority. So as this is a public meeting, we wouldn't want to, if you like, do that for them.
Yeah.
But we are aware, and the point of the benchmarking information is we do make contact with the brigades who are either performing well or less well to find out what are they doing or not doing that we could be doing and we can learn from. And occasionally it finds that actually they're doing it wrong in the first place, and that's the reason why the performance is such an outlier. But yeah, we certainly use it in the way it's intended to, but unfortunately, as I say, I can't do. Thank you.
Don, yeah.
Just very briefly, Simon, thank you. We made the policy decision around the automatic fire alarm responses. If there wasn't some sort of extra signal that it was valid, then we wouldn't go, which clearly has meant we made less unnecessary journeys out into the community. Have we done any analysis on when we arrived as to what was actually happening? So in other words, I presume that looking at the figures here, there weren't significant issues. All these ones we attended, so quite a lot of them are still effectively false alarms. And what we're going to, I'm not expecting you to answer now, but perhaps in future we could start to answer that.
Yes, we can, yes. So everyone we attend, we record information at. The primary cause of the attendance at the automatic fire alarms is unfortunately human things. So it's either where it's been tested and they haven't told us that they're testing it, or something is done that sets off the alarms due to steam and stuff like that. So we certainly are aware of that. We collate information about, if you like, premises that have a high number of alarms, and then our business fire safety team make engagement with them to try and reduce those number of alarms. And we've got some quite active partnerships working that way at the moment. So you're quite right, the numbers have come down quite significantly compared to what we used to have, but what we'd still rather do is to make that was known. So we're only attending if there's actually reason for us to attend, because I think we talked about it before, every attendance we make to an alarm is introducing risk into the community through travelling at blue lights, through traffic, and it also means that those appliances and resources are not available to respond to other incidents because they're tied up on those.
Simon, you were saying that the reason that we were off target for the deliberate secondary fires was because of the hot weather. It just occurs to me that as we're expecting more of these extreme weather events, we might continue to be difficult to meet this target in the future. Do you think that's likely to be the case?
I mean, it is possible. I mean, predicting that we accept climate change, but then predicting what that change is actually going to be is difficult. There are certainly things we could do to prepare, so we know exactly where the locations were, and there's things we can do with trying to engineer that make it this is less likely to happen. And we also share information, as you're aware, with our police colleagues about incidents that we've recorded as deliberate. So it's something that, well, with regard to the target setting, the main thing that we do is our process currently is to look at the last 6 years and average it out, but taking out the two outliers, so taking out the lowest number and the highest number. So this is likely to be the highest number, so it's likely it won't impact upon the target for next year. And the reason we set targets in that way is to stop trying to exceptional events like the first year of the COVID pandemic when the numbers were very, very small. So it was an exceptional thing, and because it was exceptional, we try and exclude it from the target setting.
Thank you very much. Oh, yeah, Adam, sorry.
So I just have two questions. They're completely unrelated. So with regards to the deliberate fires, so I understand how the matrix of that works. So there will be some geographical data that shows where the the hot spots are, right? So will then there be targeted activity around communication? Because I'm assuming, I don't know, maybe the Downs were a location where people would tend to congregate for barbecues, so on and so forth. So will there be activity around trying to identify either preventative measures in those areas, is my first question. And the second question is completely unrelated.
So to answer the first one, yes, we have very good information about geographic location, and the software allows us to map that and hotspot it. So it is something in the new service plan that is being proposed is talking about our, if you like, prevention and protection of such activities. So this will feed into that.
And then the second question is what I don't think will be as easy to answer. And that was the answer I was expecting, so thank you. With regards to the environmental not hitting the emissions target, that might not be the phrase you used. Obviously with the appliances being called out before, and then obviously with the congestion thing in Bristol, so on and so forth, that all makes sense to me. So my understanding is there is no plans to take retrospective action on the current appliances to move them to a biofuel or something like that. So we will continue to miss that target, unfortunately. So I appreciate the target will be adjusted. But is there any plan to do anything more proactive than change the target? Does that make sense? Because if the vehicles are now the contributing factor, clearly to replace the vehicles is an expensive exercise that the funds aren't there available to do. And I am not technical enough to understand this, but you could convert them to biomass fuels, can't you, for example? So is there any plans to do that then would have a reduction on the environmental impact of using the vehicles?
I'm not sure I've got the information needed to answer that fully, but I'm aware that our fleet management team are looking at alternative fuelling for vehicles, about where electric appliances or biofuels are available currently. And I believe electric fire engines are being tested.
Yeah, they are. I know they are.
Yes.
Yeah, but you answered part of that question yourself then, Councillor, in that balance between the cost right now of electric fire appliances that are in development and trial. So,
okay.
yeah, I think that's something said that obviously that's going to be continually reviewed, and the plan is to continually review the progress within the market right now and alternative fuel fire engines. But there's such a niche area in the UK.
There's not.
It's going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's more wise to follow.
We don't necessarily. Yeah.
There are obviously other aspects in place in service all the time. The capital programme, which the environmental measures put in place by the team will contribute to that figure. But it is going to be an ongoing concern. The original target set by the Fire Authority, ahead of the national target of 2050, is going to be a challenge to watch in the years ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Simon.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So we just note that report.
Can I just ask one more question? Sorry. Yeah, I appreciate you trying to move on.
Go ahead.
So I understand all of that, and that all makes complete sense. But given that the environmental impact is such a significant issue, will there be a proactive tracking of that that's going to be recorded publicly? So I'm not asking my question very clearly. So we have the performance indicators, don't we? But will there be an easy track from, if I as a member of public wanted to scrutinise the performance of what activity is being done for carbon reduction with the authority?
I might be able to. There is an annual report prepared by Annabelle, who's our environmental manager. So I know she does an annual report and she will tell you where we are vis-a-vis the targets we've set ourselves and whether any adjustments need to be. I can't recall when that report comes, but there is a separate report on that topic.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We move on to item 8, which is the transformation programme update. And we've got Ian Potter to present the report. Could you just introduce yourself first and then thank you.
Good morning everybody. I'm Ian Potter. I'm currently the Head of Transformation for the period that Vaughan Jenkins is away on other duties. The report today is an update on the progress of the transformation programme. The recommendation for members is to note the report and scrutinise contents and make any recommendations or suggestions. There's a few things that I'd like to draw members' attention to. We've had some difficulties with recruiting to a number of the roles, particularly around IT. It's quite a tough market out there at the moment, generally. This is connected to the move to Microsoft 365. Lots of organisations are doing that, so there's quite a lot of demand in the marketplace. We still haven't had any joy with recruiting to the trainer role, so we're continuing to explore different ways that we may be able to do that. But we are interviewing an IT developer later this week, and we are hopeful that will prove successful. And that will enable us to move some of our digital work on a bit more quickly. We weren't able to attract anybody to our business change role, so the thinking with that particular one was the way we kind of run the programme is we do all of the work to get to the point where we propose a change, but then when we get to implementation, at the moment we stick with that team until it's landed, embedded, we evaluate it. And we were looking for a particular role that could kind of bridge that gap. We've not been successful. We had no interest at all in that one. So we're now looking at a slightly different approach where we would continue to do that work within the transformation programme. So budget permitting, we'll be looking at getting another project delivery officer that will just boost our capacity at that level. And so we'll continue to operate in the way that we have so far. The Firewatch project manager, that role was up for review at the end of December. I'm pleased to say that he's remaining with the team. It will now be on a 3-day-a-week basis. So we've moved quite a long way in terms of the first phase of the Firewatch system upgrade. And I'm pleased to say that the anticipated go live date is only a short time away. It's the 7th of February. So that's quite a significant change. So that's kind of the recruitment and resourcing. I'd also just like to mention, obviously transformation is about looking at ways in which we can improve ways of working, and we do that internally within our programme as well. So we're continually looking at how we might improve how we do what we do. We have reduced the number of work packages within the programme, and that's around reducing some of the administration. So each of the work packages has a process that we follow, and we've combined up some of those related work packages so that there's less administration. We're coming into the final year of the programme, so that was an important change. So the work hasn't gone, it's just combined into a smaller number, and some of the work packages have been combined into the Firewatch project itself because the redesign solution will be delivered by Firewatch, and it just makes sense to bring those together. The other thing I would draw members' attention to, the transformation timeline is kept under review. We look at that on a regular basis. So it does change. And just kind of to illustrate that, in terms of the status of the work packages, since the report was submitted, 11 work packages have now commenced and a further work package has been completed and 2 more have moved to the evaluation stage. So it is moving at pace, and you will see that as we go through the year as further reports are brought forward. So those were things I wanted to bring members' attention to. I'm happy to take any questions or observations.
Thank you. I understand the problems with recruitment, of course. We have spent some time as a committee considering how we might actually be able to help, but we appreciate the difficulties there and the limitations, of course. One idea that strikes me, bearing in mind you said several other organisations, or many, are taking similar steps at the present moment in time. While it's not ideal, you may not think it's feasible. Is there any virtue in considering seeing whether we can team up with another local public sector organisation and offer an enhanced salary and obviously features?
That isn't an avenue we've looked at, but it's one that we certainly could consider if there's another organisation where they may have some capacity. Certainly happy to take that away and look at that. It's a good suggestion.
So it's just the reds on the timeline. Does the red mean that work package is at risk, or does that just is red indicating it's not started?
No, so the colour coding is the type of work package. Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much, Ian. So we just note that report then. Thank you. Thanks. Excellent. Right, let's move on to item 9, the HMI action plan. Pete Davis. So Pete, if you could just introduce yourself first.
Good morning, members, colleagues. Pete Davis. I'm the Services Liaison Officer with His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary and Fire and Rescue Services, which I shall abbreviate for ease to HMI. Members, the paper before you today is for noting and presents your regular update against our progress from our HMI Round 2 Inspection Action Plan. You'll recall that the service last underwent inspection in 2021, and the report was published by HMI on the 15th of December 2021. That report contained 22 areas for improvement, and in order to resolve those areas for improvement, we developed this action plan, which contains 63 individual actions. The version of the action plan which is presented at each meeting of this committee is the latest approved version, which has been scrutinised by the service leadership team. So in this case, it's the November edition. There will be a further edition being tabled to the SLT next week, and that will then be the next version which will be approved. But this is the latest approved version. The report itself, the inspection action plan itself, is presented at Appendix 1 and contains a lot of granular detail, which you'll be relieved to hear. I won't be going through individually, but in terms of the headlines, we are currently 30% complete, 48% of actions are in progress, and 22% have not yet started. And of those actions, 22% not yet started, in many cases, that's because they are reliant on one of the ongoing actions being completed before the next actions can start, because they are sequentially dependent on things that are already in progress. So Appendix 1, as I say, contains that latest edition of the Inspection Action Plan, which is presented to you for information. But I would just like also to draw your attention to activity related to the forthcoming Round 3 inspection, which I've included from paragraph 5.3 on page 28 of your packs. So we are now in the warm-up phase for Round 3 inspection. That has already started for the first services which are taking place in Round 3. As I've mentioned in paragraph 5.4, the timeline which has been published by HMI so far would indicate that we are probably going to start our Round 3 inspection in Avon in April 2023. That will kick off with the document request and self-assessment, and we'll probably expect the on-site fieldwork, which will take place over 8 weeks, to begin in late May 2023. So we have already had some informal warm-up engagement activity from HMI. Our service liaison lead visited us in late November last year for some preliminary interviews with lead managers. And we are now preparing for Round 3 inspection activity. So I think really they're the key points that I wanted to raise with members, but of course happy to take any questions as you see fit.
So I understand there's 22% of the actions not yet started, and interesting that you said they run sequentially, so that does make a lot of sense. But do you feel that we are currently on target to hit the completion of this action plan before the next visit?
Well, some of the actions have got planned completion dates which go beyond the start of the Round 3 inspection anyway, so that was planned when the action plan was developed. In terms of those sequential actions and the times they were taken. So it won't be completely completed by the time we start Round 3 inspection, but as we did with Round 1 into Round 2, if there are any actions which are outstanding, they will be carried forward into the next inspection action plan, such that we have one consolidated version and nothing is missed off the radar or dropped off.
Following up from Adam's point, obviously you've said the 22% of things not started include things which we can't progress until we progress the existing work. Are there any areas particularly you foresee obstacles to or issues that which are actually preventing you making headway?
I think there are some actions where either staffing issues or monetary issues have had an impact in terms of the progress, but there's nothing that comes immediately to mind which I would highlight to the committee at this stage. Thank you.
In which case we'll move on to the capital programme update. Claire Bentley to present.
Morning everyone, I'm Claire Bentley, I'm the Head of Finance for Avon Fire. So got two reports today. First is the capital programme update, which you'll all be used to seeing. And this is just to go through where we are in terms of that capital programme for this financial year, and then I'll talk a little bit about what's going to happen going forward. And within the reports you also have some specific operational updates from the capital leads. So at the moment we're looking at an underspend in year. A large proportion of that is as a result of the delays to the Bedminster project. and that is because the original estimate has now increased by about 75% in terms of costs, and that's as a result of increases in costs on a lot of the materials involved, and also the expectation from the people who will actually be building it that it's going to take significantly longer because of a number of delays in their supply chain. So we are now starting to see the impact of those price changes and the inflation on that one. And then in terms of the fleet, the delay there is around actually just making the payment. So the difference with capital and revenue is that we can't accrue in capital. So we have to move it into next year if that's when the spend's going to happen. So that's all that is, yes, that's the final payment on the appliances which are currently being built. And the control project, again, that will move into next year. Again, that's a result of national delays and potential increases in cost because the specifications of that project are changing. We've got an underspend on ICT, and that's as a result of, again, some delays in the supply chain, but also what we're looking at is the work in control is dependent on some infrastructure, which we will look at in next year's capital programme. But at the moment, it's a little bit too early for us to be exploring that because that's been delayed. And then transformation, we have got a procurement in place for some devices to support one of the transformation projects, and then we'll carry that forward into next year for anything else that we need on transformation. But as we know, that's a specific amount that was allocated to transformation for the life of that project. And that's sort of the highlights. I'm happy to kind of answer any specific questions if I can.
Claire, I know the projects for Bath and Weston are also considerably delayed or put back.
Yeah.
So would we expect the costs on those to rise as well?
Yeah.
And so will more funds need to be allocated?
Well, at the moment, what we're looking at is a pause on any major projects. Because obviously with Bedminster, we had original costs of 1.5 million and now it's gone up to almost 3 million. So where we've got projects like Bath and Weston, where it's actually in the millions to begin with, if we start that now and commit to it, then actually we could be needing significantly more than if we wait. But we will continue to explore those projects, but it may be that we will have to wait in terms of actually when they commence. But that's something that we're looking at as part of the capital programme for the next 3 years. But like I say, at the moment, because of what we know in terms of the market, it's not really prudent for us to start large projects.
Yeah. Okay. Richard?
As you've said, big construction, inflation and supplier problems have, I'm sure, fortunately, been a beneficial from your angle. I was interested, we've heard before, of course, what sort of appliance supplier problems we're having. Would it be fair to ask you, or is that really more appropriate for the fleet maintenance manager?
I can't give you the specifics, but I can kind of add to what Simon and Steve have already said around fleet, in that what we are doing is exploring the overall fleet strategy, and that's happening with the fleet manager and the assistant chief for service delivery support, but also we're looking at that through the capital prioritisation and steering group that we now have in terms of how we prioritise that spend going forward. So it's something that we're talking about in lots of different places to try and actually really understand what is the most sensible way forward.
So I guess either the outcome of those discussions might well come as a paper for the AFA, of course. Yeah, fine.
Thank you, Claire, and thanks for a great report as always. I'm going to ask you a little bit of an unfair question now, but we'll see how we go. Obviously, inflation's a scourge at the moment on individuals, private sector and public sector. While there's a general inflationary rate, different organisations will experience different levels of inflation. With the note of how far the project that you just discussed has jumped, what kind of inflation rate are we looking at for us as an organisation? Sorry, that's why I said it was an unfair question, but...
I think it's really difficult because there are a number of factors within that project. Obviously, it's quite a major build, but some of the specifics, certainly, the conversations I've had with our premises lead, this price of steel has jumped significantly. There are also, obviously, the utilities costs, which is impacting not just on us, but obviously on our contractors, and a lot of the construction materials, they're seeing really significant rises. I wouldn't like to give you a potential on that, but there are other reasons why it's changed, because like I say, it's actually taking longer to carry out the project as well, so that's had an impact on the cost, and some of that is down to the delays in the supply chain, not just inflation. So there are a lot of different factors, but we're seeing some significant increases, 50% on certain materials, so then that can have quite a significant impact on the project overall. But I don't have, I can't give you the specifics around it. But yeah.
Ben, you're a politician, you're allowed to be unfair. That is positively expected, of course.
Thanks. This is more perhaps a question for our clerk than for you, Claire, but in terms of the programme, the capital programme, I mean, clearly going back a few years, we were planned from the sale of the old HQ to finance Bath, Western and Avonmouth. Clearly we've done Avonmouth, but Bath and Western things have changed. I suppose it's when will we get, as an authority, the new premises and capital programme associated with it? I guess it would make more sense to do that to the new authority come June of this year. In terms of timeline, I don't know if it's any earlier than that, but is that your expectation it will come in post-June?
I think it will be part of the bundle of financial reports you're going to get at the next Fire Authority meeting, which is the extraordinary one in February. Is it the 17th from memory?
Yes. Yeah.
So I think in previous years we've staggered some of the financial reporting before the Fire Authority, but our interim treasurer, I think, was quite keen that extraordinary meeting is used not only for the budget and the precept, which is why it's in February because of the deadlines, but in addition that all financial strategies are pretty much delivered to that same meeting. That's the plan, I think. Claire will correct me
that's
if I'm
right.
wrong.
So it is also where we'll take the capital programme and the treasury management strategy, because they're all linked quite closely to our revenue budget, and what we want to highlight is what those links are. So the only report that will go in June is our reserve strategy, and that's because that one we do after the year end, so that makes sense to go. But all of these are kind of pre-year end reports, so we're actually working on those now to pull that together.
I'm talking about a more strategic view in terms of the fact of what we'll be able to afford and how we can deliver what we need to, rather than just the pounds and pennies of it. Because I think what you've said, there's some challenges to try and deliver what we want to deliver within the funding we've got, and we're also quite limited on how much more we could borrow. So that's the reason I was saying, is that going to be brought forward a little bit later rather than the
Yeah, so actually that is part of the reserve strategy, because that's where our capital reserve sits, because at the moment we've got that capital reserve that will actually cover the next 2 financial years of the capital programme, but that's if we don't include some of the larger projects. So that's a discussion absolutely that we can have when that reserve strategy goes in June, because what we'll do then is start looking forward, and hopefully by then as well we'll start to see a little bit of stability perhaps, but yeah. So again, this is a report that hopefully you'll be familiar with, but this is the first time that we've brought revenue specifically to this committee, and we'll do that now at each committee going forward. So we are reporting a balanced budget for this year. We've got a slight overspend at the moment of about 26k, but obviously this is based on the November figures, and we're expecting that to kind of just even out as to a break even by the end of the year. The largest change you'll see is we've actually now adjusted the revenue position to take into account the increased pay awards for which has been agreed for our Green Book corporate staff and which are proposed in terms of our Grey Book firefighter staff. And then we've also got some slight underspends on premises where we've had a reduction in our cleaning contract, and also we significantly increased the utilities budget for this financial year, so we basically doubled it from what we had previously, and we are expecting that to come in slightly under. But obviously we're also in the middle of winter, so at the moment we're not absolutely sure what our usage is going to be over the next couple of months. So that one we're keeping obviously quite a close eye on, but that budget will then continue at that sort of level going forward. And the rest of it is sort of quite small changes in a number of different areas, and we are again now starting to see some of the prices just start to creep up a little bit with the impact of inflation. But what we've also been doing obviously to try and mitigate that is we've got some quite large contracts which we've now agreed that will actually result in savings going forward around some of our HR services, and also we've now got a new IT contract which, although is slightly more expensive than our old one, actually includes some additional items which we've then managed to fix the price on. So again, that cuts down some of our risk around some of those areas of movement in terms of price. So that's all I was planning to say, but again, happy to answer any questions.
Claire, I think quite a few of the same issues which related to the capital report relate to this, so I suspect members may have less queries. Just a quick query on the supplies and services overspend of 74k. Obviously, you say a significant number are to do with contractual inflation. Is there other overspends?
No, sorry. So we're trying to minimise that overspend through the use of contracts. So the supplies and services is where it's really where some of the smaller items go, which aren't covered by contracts. So that's why we're seeing the increase in price there, because that's relating then to the direct inflation on those items. So it's just more of a case of kind of monitoring that one, really.
Thanks again, Claire. It's not a question, it's more of a comment. I just want to say well done. You know, everything going on, to just have an overspend of 26,000, you know, is amazing. As much as I believe in balanced budgets, you know, I think on this occasion, you know, well done, because everything that's going on, it's just the idea that we were only at 26,000, I think was, you know, I was expecting a lot more, but yeah, well done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So so I associate myself with Ben's comments just to be nice. So the employee costs on 5.2. So maybe this should be through the clerk. So the 5%. No, sorry. The corporate staff pay award is 190k. Has that been accepted? Because then.
Yeah, so the 190k is a differential between what we had put in terms of the budget increase of 2% and what was actually agreed, which was
whatever the percentage.
It's around about 4% averages out. So,
and then, okay, that makes sense. And then the uniform staff, the proposed increase is 5%. Mm-hmm. But has that yet been accepted?
No. But because it relates to this financial year, we have to include it in our pay costs for this year. Otherwise, it will just be a double pressure next year. And but it hasn't been agreed, and I don't know if Steve can.
No, that's fine. Yeah, no, I don't want to get into
we don't really know what's going to happen.
I don't want to get into
leave it there.
Any more questions to Claire?
Thank you.
And we move on to item 12, the Grenfell Tower Inquiry Progress Update. Danny McCarthy to present.
Good morning, councillors. Good morning, colleagues. My name is Danny McCarthy. I'm a station manager for risk management projects. So I'm just going to give you an update of our current progress with the Grenfell internal actions. This report highlights the progress made by Avon Fire and Rescue Service from the formal recommendations in the Phase 1 report, and the overall status has progressed forward with 19 internal actions complete, with a further 10 still remaining in progress. A further review of the progress of the target completion dates has been completed, and regrettably 8 internal actions have had their target completion dates delayed, and the reasons for those delays are documented in section 5 of this report. So this paper focuses on the progress made by Avon Fire and Rescue Service since our last progress report on the 7th of October, and relates solely to the Phase 1 report. Phase 2 of the inquiry commenced on the 27th of January 2021 to examine the reasons why the fire happened at Grenfell Tower, and that inquiry is now closed, and the panel are preparing the final report, which we expect to be published sometime this year. Financial implications, there was a £99,229 grant for the recommendations, and we have allocated £95,126 so far, which leaves us with £4,103 still to spend. The 29 internal actions documented in the updated action plan are in Appendix 1. And of those 29 internal actions, as I said, 19 are now complete, with 10 that are still remaining. Since the previous update, 8 internal actions have been delayed, and these are highlighted in bold in Table 1, with the primary reason compatibility with other emergency services systems, particularly around our communications and control systems, and external agencies' procurement delays. So trouble in other agencies getting equipment and things for us to utilise. The work undertaken to reach this point puts the service in a confident position to move forward with our strategic priorities of making the service stronger and communities safer. A summary of the progress and revised completion dates are shown in Figure 1 and Table 1 below. Wider progress, the third phase of our improved tall buildings training, which were the coached exercises, has now been completed, and work is now underway to develop our further training exercises for all operational staff to embed the newly published evacuation OIN. And our work with Bristol City Council to improve our site-specific risk information in relation to high-rise residential buildings and our computer-aided design plans is almost complete. There are 2 Bristol City Council CAD plans outstanding, and the premises information plates designs has been agreed in principle, and work is now underway to complete these. The Portishead team are liaising with the other unitaries and also Unite Student Accommodation to start creating plans for their high-rise residential buildings. That's all I've got for the update today. I'll now pause to take any questions or comments.
Thank you, Danny. Just looking at the reports, and I don't know if this is, sorry, an unfair question to you, but this might be a Claire-related question, but £4,103 will be allocated to additional costs as identified. That's in on 4.1. Going back to the previous discussion about inflation, do you see those costs being actually ate away over the next year while the report's being implemented? I'm just slightly concerned. Obviously, we've got this £4,000, but there's a good chance that if things keep going the way they are, we might actually find ourselves on the opposite side, if that makes sense. You know, when everything's been implemented.
Yeah, absolutely. So that the £4,100, I have got a plan to spend that relatively soon. With the publication of the evacuation OIN, it mentioned evacuation packs, which obviously then go out onto frontline fire engines for operational staff to use. I've recently had someone join my team whose sole project at the moment is to work on these evacuation packs, get the resources and cost up, which he's been doing. So I anticipate that within the next 2 months, we will probably have spent that money. Moving forward, if there's any additional spends, where that money comes from will be discussion probably with Claire.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for the report and the amount of progress that's been made in a very short time. I think that's really great. So the question I'm going to ask now is for you to be critical of others, possibly. In 5.4 of your report, you're talking about wider progress. Other unitaries, I think, for example, my own unitary in North Somerset, I think we've only got 3 or 4 high-rise buildings, I think they're all in Weston-super-Mare, which I believe have been relatively well sorted. You might be contradicting my information, is that. But what about the student accommodation in particular? The words, to start creating plans for their HRRBs. Grenfell was absolutely awful. It was quite a long time ago. Having witnessed an evacuation drill at student accommodation in central Bristol and been very, very praiseworthy of the firefighters, but not so much of the students in it. I do wonder what level of risk is there out there from that statement. Is it just me over-interpreting the wording, or is there quite a lag there in terms of them doing their part?
So a lot of the student accommodations do have plans or grab packs that operational crews can utilise. Around creating plans is to replicate what we've done with our Bristol City Council high-rise buildings, so that we have that information on our mobile data terminals already in the way that helps us the information that we need in a particular order to then utilise and obviously then use that for training. With the other unitaries, I think there's been a legislation change to the fire service order that I think it's this month. Any owner of a high-rise residential building over 18 metres must now by law produce plans to the authority. So the Portishead team are now working alongside Business Fire Safety to collate those plans in an inbox and then interpret them and design them to align with how we've designed all our other CAD drawings. So that's what that relates to.
Okay, any other questions?
Thank you.
We note that report and move on to next item, collaboration and partnership working update. Mandy Pescott to present. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm Mandy Pescott, Collaboration and Partnerships Manager, and I'd like to update you on our collaboration activities. Since our last update, we'd like you to review the content of this. Firstly, the collaboration framework and toolkit. It was hoped to have this published and ready for you today, but we have taken some extended time to develop our approach to collaborative work and incorporate new learning and best practice, and to test some of the tools and the new systems that we're using to make the collaboration function more efficient. So that will, I can't make a promise it's going to be with you 6 months' time, but I would imagine it will be. Moving over to our existing collaborations then, we spent a lot of 2022 thoroughly evaluating our existing collaborations to make sure that they are efficient and to determine their continuance. Throughout the evaluation period, we've been updating or introducing new risk assessments and written agreements, partnership agreements, etc. And the new scoping impact assessment, which the service has adopted for all of its key activities to ensure that we're collaborating safely. So that gives us, so for evaluation, we've got 30 formal collaborations and partnerships in place at the moment. 14 are in date, 10 evaluations are in date, 11 evaluations are in progress still, and 5 of those collaborations are regional and are not included in our own collaboration evaluation processes at the moment. So that's the 4 SWES collaborations, and there are 1 local interviews collaboration. On to new collaborations. We have a new collaboration that's gone live with the Royal National Wildlife Institute, where we and the RNLI engage in joint training. We work together to risk assess live water-related operational incidents using our drone and our drones team, providing both partners with a better awareness of the use and benefits of drone technology. Collaborations under consideration. We're continuing to work on a number of memorandums of understanding to support working at height with other FRSs, multi-agency cross-border exercising, again with FRSs, regional corresponding and disaster and crisis search and rescue. Further details of these collaborations will be provided once they have moved from the planning stage to the live stage and can be reported as new collaborations. On to Operation Braidwood, we continue to support SWAST, and as at 5th of December, 13 of our personnel remain seconded to SWAST, crewing ambulances. Since the collaboration began, the teams have covered 3,267 shifts for SWAST, responded to 10,316 calls, spent 13,211 hours actively engaged in incidents, and most importantly, brought 53 patients back to life on scene. Now COVID disease, Operation Braidwood's due to finish in March. Whole-time personnel will be brought back into service from January, and on-call personnel in March. Operation Braidwood has enabled both parties, SWAST and Avon to have a good working relationship, and it's hopefully that good relationship will continue through future collaborations. We've learned and shared new skill sets which we will take back into our own organisations. Finally, on Operation Braidwood, 2 of our own personnel received Chief Executive commendations from SWAFT for actions over and above that expected of their role, which is moving on to risk reduction, I'll give you brief updates on our vulnerable adults, children and young persons and business fire safety teams with regards to our collaboration and partnership activities. So vulnerable adults team and home fire safety visits. In year 21 to 22, the service achieved 3,878 home fire safety visits, which is a rise of approximately 850 on the previous year. The current financial year, we aim to achieve 5,000 visits following the COVID pandemic. And as at 31st of November, we'd achieved 3,014. It looks unlikely we'll achieve our anticipated target of 5,000, and this is due to low referral numbers still, both from the public and from partners, and long-term absences within the team. Regarding the vulnerable adults team referring partners, we have 173 partnership relationships with many organisations across our service area who refer their vulnerable clients to us for home fire safety visit. My report states, I think it's item 511, that there may have been a reporting issue. That I can confirm today that reporting issue has been fixed, and as at November, our percentage rate of partner referrals is 49. So 49% of all referrals received for those fire safety visits are from our referring partners. The Vulnerable Adults team continues to monitor partner referral numbers, and their communication work has increased over the year. It outlines further efforts that they're making to increase those referral numbers in the report. Vulnerable Adults teams looking to provide bespoke feedback to partners, and improving customer service by reviewing our home fire safety booking methods, which may not increase the number of referrals that we see, but it will help deal with limit the numbers that we might lose. The number of referrals that we lose are, for example, if a referral has been made and we're unable to contact the individual who needs the visit, or if individuals withdraw from our processes. The Vulnerable Adults team has been working on a new online home fire safety check tool, which was recently launched by NSCC, which is available to everybody in our communities to help them assess how fire safe their home is. The tool provides bespoke fire safety to those who complete it. We're then passed that information with their consent so that we can consider further intervention, and we can then contact those individuals and offer a full fire safety visit. I provided a link in the report if you'd like to learn more about the Home Fire Safety Check tool. The tools are a collaboration between NFCC and SafeLinks. SafeLinks are a customer-focused online provider of fire safety products, advice and services, and the tool is free of charge to Fire and Rescue Service and the tool was officially launched in September, and some figures for you. Between April and November 2023, 485 people completed the Home Fire Safety Check. And the team is looking to generate some figures on how many of those completions resulted in a Home Fire Safety visit. Finally, for the vulnerable adults team, their work with our partner SARI continues. So that they've been working with SARI so that SARI better understand our services and how to make our Home Fire Safety visit referral themselves. They've attended our practitioner training sessions, and our vulnerable adults manager is working with SARI on a multi-agency project to provide targeted support to victims of hate crime. They're also working with SARI to develop an awareness of different cultures in our service area and how we can overcome any potential barriers to communication. So that's the vulnerable adults team. Moving on to children and young persons. Their existing collaborations are currently under review. Our partnerships with Life Skills and the RNLI, which are different to the Drones Partnership, has been reshaped to include wide opportunities for information and data sharing, which supports the department to more focused targeting on schools and ensures that resources are focused on the most vulnerable. The CYP team's partnership with the Prince's Trust continues to provide opportunities to work with some of the most vulnerable in our communities. The collaboration has actually expanded from a 1-week programme to a 12-week programme, so we look forward to seeing how that progresses. CYP's road and water safety partnerships are functioning as expected, and these enable us to be responsive to trends and incidents within the service area. Moving on to Risk Reduction's Business Fire Safety team. They continue to support our partners Curing and Unite students through our primary authority schemes. These schemes work well and look to continue for some time. In fact, we've had other organisations contact us to engage on a similar basis. Returning to SARI, the Business Fire Safety team has been developing a new video and has worked closely with SARI to determine how and where to communicate to make sure that we're reaching the people in all of our communities. And that is a very short snapshot of my report. It was quite a long one this time, so forgive me for that. But more details obviously in the report. Any questions?
Yeah, so thank you. It's very comprehensive and very useful. But Ben first, and then.
Thanks, Mandy. And obviously it is a short report, but you've done so much, so congratulations. Just a comment and a question. I'd like to propose that we acknowledge and pass on our thanks to the team members that have been seconded to SWAST, the work that they've done, and pass on our congratulations to those who have received the Chief Exec's award. My question is, obviously, with the current pressures around our local NHS trusts and the environment we're in terms of staff shortages in the current strike environment, have any discussions taken place to extend the partnership to help with these pressures, or establish a new partnership going forward?
With SWAST. Not to my knowledge, but there's some information I can find out for you.
That'd be great if possible.
Can I reiterate what Ben said and actually congratulate you on a very comprehensive report? That's very impressive. Secondly, can I be naughty, but the chairman knows I like being naughty, but reassuringly, probably the best answer would come from Don or Amanda. I appreciate this is really about external partners, not UAs, but it's also about collaboration. Now, for my sins, I serve on Bristol's Committee on the Committees, which is devising a post-mayoral model governance structure. Now, I'm assuming we haven't yet, as a working group, actually really communicated with partners. I'm assuming most of our contact is with the Mayor's office, so I do want us to communicate with you and other partners far earlier than we are, but am I correct, is presently the primary contact with the Mayor's office?
I don't know the answer to that question. I think it's probably at a lower level than that, is my feeling. But we can find out and come back to you. So the point you're making is because you're looking at the post-mayoral system, that the contents are established at the contact at the right level.
It does occur, obviously, it's mechanics of timely decision making, of course, and transparent decision making. But it does seem that all the linkages with our partners need to be preserved and strengthened.
Okay, we'll take that offline and come back to you. Thank you.
Any other questions? No?
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Mandy. That's very good. Thank you. So that just leaves the date of the next meeting, which is the 20th of April, 10:30 at headquarters.
What?
And with that, I think we can... The 20th of April, 10:30.
So I have a question as a class. Is that Purdah? Because there's an election in there.
Purdah doesn't affect business as usual. So I have, in fact, I did do a detailed email with legal advice about what things may be affected by Purdah and what things aren't affected by Purdah, in response to a couple of members' questions, but I can circulate it more widely to members if that's helpful.
No,
it won't affect normal committee business. But my understanding is decisions can still be made that need to be made for the operational efficiency of the organisation.
In my view, I think sometimes officers have been needlessly sensitive about Purdah.
Yes, I agree.
It's really about actually giving unfair promotion to certain individuals or parties.
Just make a comment. Can I just suggest that advice that you've received just be sent to all members, just so there's an understanding from everyone?
I can certainly do that. It's not a problem.
So
Thank you.
obviously you appreciate Bristol doesn't have elections.
Yeah, it's just 3 minutes. Thank you.
Just the important places.
I wouldn't be drawn at.
Okay, and with that,
Happy to
we close the meeting. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.